Hi, my name is Robert Peak. I am currently studying mechanical engineering here at Wazoo, and this is the reflection video for my English 101 course. So, I am a visual and auditory learner, so I like to see diagrams and pictures so I can make visual connections, but also having that auditory help with it really enhances my learning. So, for example, in my chemistry class, the PowerPoints, they are key, but then hearing Dr. Buckley speak, that has a big impact on my learning. So throughout this semester, I've learned a lot about myself as a writer and a researcher. For research, I've learned that I like to take a lot of time and spend time looking at different sources, getting some different ideas for my research. So, for example, the annotated bibs, I used those to enhance my research a lot, and it actually got me kind of excited about the topic I ended up writing about for my project 4. So, when I did go about selecting journals to do my research on, I looked a lot at where the journal came from and if it was a journal that would be applicable to my topic. So personally, mine was about fishery conservation. So I wanted to pick articles that or journals that had fisheries in the title. So like there was one where it was called Fisheries Research. That was a fairly straightforward one to pick. But then there were some less obvious ones that were still applicable. Like there was a social one that just focused on the social aspect of society, and it had an article about how fishing groups affected um, awareness, and that was a really useful read. And then I was lucky enough to be able to use those in Project 4, which really saved me a lot of time. So for Project 1, I chose Project 1 for to be included in my portfolio. That was the one I had the most fun writing about. It was about a time when we had to communicate with each other. So I wrote about a time I went jeeping in the fall of this year, and in that it talks about how we had to learn to communicate non-verbally because we couldn't hear each other. Whether you were sitting in the back of the truck or you were outside the truck and trying to speak to the driver. So we talked about how we had to learn how to use hand signals and how we had to adapt to the situation. So this paper was the most fun because it was just the one I was most connected to. I wrote about 5 drafts, which really kind of awakened me to the idea of writing more drafts really helped because my first draft, it was about 6 pages and it was just very long and rambly and didn't go anywhere real quick. So I was just able to streamline that through the each of the drafts to eventually get a final product I'm fairly proud of. So I decided to not include Project 2 because I felt that one was my weakest paper. I didn't put as much time into it as I should have, and it just lacked compared to the rest. And Project 3, that one was the synthesis paper where we looked at Fish and Young's article and just kind of looked at them, see how they played together. So I think synthesis is a very valuable thing. It takes writing to the next level and makes it a lot more valuable to those reading it. So this paper, I revising was probably the hardest on this paper because while I was writing it, I didn't quite know exactly what I was writing about. I was kind of just writing freehand, and I was able to narrow down. So using Haley's feedback, that helped a lot just to get me started. But then I was able to going through and reading out loud really helped me just to catch a lot of little mistakes and just reading out loud. It helped me hear when I was repeating myself or if there was just all sorts of little errors. So, one line I'm really proud of in this paper was the average person who is working on their car doesn't have a PhD in automotive engineering, so writing a technical report on the effects of gear ratios in the rear differential will only confuse people and limit the knowledge to specialists. I'm really proud of this line because it's kind of taking in what I was writing about. As I was writing about how code meshing really helps writing, and this one I was purposely used some longer words that aren't in everybody's vocabulary to try to show them how much that would affect their understanding. So in Project 4, I already mentioned it was about Fisher's research. So then the revising on this one was very natural because it was just like I was talking to someone. It was I read it aloud to myself and I was able to just think, does that make sense that I was saying this? Is this applicable? And so this was probably the paper where I had the biggest goal, like the clearest goal of the paper, because I had a specific audience, this one guy, and it definitely guided my paper, which was very, very useful. So as a future, I need to get better at revising, I feel. I'm not the best at it, but I feel I have learned a lot this last semester. So, thank you for your time.